For you to get the maximum accuracy of the PKM, you have to mount it on a bipod. So according to what we were given, they said before he could even, try to put the bullets in the PKM and, mount it on the bipod and all of that, the troops were already on him. Like Jesus was upon the Jews. And before you know what happened, they relocated him to where he was supposed to go to. Burkina Faso have conquered Jibo. Now the bells are ringing at the doorstep of the terrorists in Baraboulé. And Baraboulé is like the stronghold of the JNIM terrorists in the northern Burkina Faso. Now, a strategic defeat to the terrorists in Baraboulé is actually going to be a big defeat for the JNIM, and it could mark the end of the JNIM in Burkina Faso, because if they defeat the terrorists in Baraboule, that means the JNIM will be completely pushed out of Burkina Faso. And, if they are pushed out of Burkina Faso, it means the next place they want to enter is the Malian territory. And on the next city, if you get out of Burkina Faso, the next city in Mali, is heavily fortified with, a lot of military components, and it will be very, very disastrous for the JNIM forces. So yesterday there was a very big consequential exchange between the JNIM component and the VDP together with the 28th Battalion of the Rapid Intervention Assault Brigade in Burkina Faso yesterday. There is now migration from the Jibo region to Baraboule, and Baraboule is the stronghold of the terrorists in northern Mali. And if you leave Baraboule, the next place you are going to is one of the most fortified places in Mali, towards the eastern border of Mali. So, the problem with the JNIM is they don't want to give up their stronghold, and majority of the time they are getting intelligence from an external reconnaissance agency that is actually giving them precise intel on troop movement, the troop advancement. It's giving them intel on both the assault brigade of the Burkinabe Armed Forces, and it's also giving them information about the containment forces of the Burkinabe Armed Forces. Because what the Burkinabe Armed Forces do is, once they win a particular skirmish, the assault team don't remain there. The assault team win, they get the body, they recover the bullets and everything. They recover everything they're supposed to recover. And recently we started seeing normal salines and, a lot of terrorists getting treated, and, their salines even get recovered after, being defeated. So the assault team does not, they don't proceed until the containment forces, the medical team comes in, to see if there is anybody injured or stuff like that, and part of this medical component is where you have the evac team. So what happened yesterday was that there was a reconnaissance intel to the troops about an advancement of the terrorists towards their direction. Now, what the JNIM actually feel, in my own opinion, was that this was a containment squad that was supposed to remain in that particular location. What they did not know was that this was an assault brigade of the Burkinabe's offensive, So what happened was that this was a very small assault number of 5 soldiers. And according to the information we were given by the sources that actually drove the information to our channel, the sources gave us this information that the enemy had a precise intel about their movement, about the numbers they had. So what the enemy did was to double the number. And that's what the JNIM does. Once they know you are like 5, 7, they double or triple the number sometimes, depending on whatever squad they have available. So what happened was that they actually moved for the Burkinabe Armed Forces. But what they did not understand was that the assault brigade of the Burkinabe Armed Forces always have a very, very strong reconnaissance component too. So the assault brigade of the Burkinabe Armed Forces, most of the time will always be successful because they have a very, very strong reconnaissance information. So it was a situation of intelligence and counterintelligence. Both teams were aware of what was coming, the numbers that were coming, and I believe the problem here for the JNIM was that the Burkinabe component had a very, very good combat experience. They had good combat capability. So, because when the JNIM were coming, they were coming on their bikes, and they had heavy gun mounted on their bikes. They were coming in twos on a single bike and all of that. So, immediately they were approaching the line of contact. The Burkinabean forces already concealed their, location just on the very line of contact, and they opened fire on the JNIM terrorists. I don't know how the information get fed to the JNIM. Maybe the external reconnaissance sources have an interpreter because I feel like when they got to the line of contact, from information, they didn't disembark when they were supposed to disembark, right? Maybe they thought maybe it was still some distance ahead of something, but the Burkinabean forces was already prepared, and they opened fire on the JNIM component. Two of the JNIM component fell. Now, the fire of the Burkinabean forces was coming from different direction because they were scattered around the place. They did not hold position in a single place. So the fact that the fire was coming from different angles, and already even before the battle started, two were already on the floor, the JNIM was surprised by this shock attack, and the next thing they did was to start turning their bike and disembarking. Now, by the time they turned and they disembarked, there was a particular guy that led the squad, right? He was the one given the command. By the time he turned to disembark and move, the troops were on him, right? So what the troops did was they shot the guy that was driving the bicycle, so he fell. And after he fell, they didn't bat an eyelid to take his life. The next thing they did was to get close to him, and they wiped him out. The problem was he tried to engage the troops, but because there were so many Burkinabes, even though the number was about 5, the reason why they were it seemed like the number was larger was because they were scattered around the place. So he did not have a precise target. So immediately fell, he tried to grab his PKM rifle to engage the troop. Now, he had enough bullets to engage the Burkinabe fighting force. But the problem with this particular engagement was, the Burkinabes were on their AK-47 assault rifle, which is a very good and effective rifle, close combat situation, and even in some distance, But he was with a PKM, and a PKM is a gun where that even if it has a greater accuracy than the AK-47, for you to get the maximum accuracy of the PKM, you have to mount it on a bipod. So according to what we were given, they said before he could even try to put the bullets in the PKM and mount it on the bipod and all of that, the troops were already on him, like Jesus was upon the Jews. And before you know what happened, they relocated him to where he was supposed to go to. So this was a failed ambush by the JNIM, and they were actually crushed by the assault team of this Burkinabes. So based on the information we heard, the Burkinabes actually gave a very hot chase to those retreating JNIM, but they couldn't catch up with them because they've already moved a bigger distance. And just so that the Burkinabes don't get caught while they were already on the offensive, they had to disembark, and they gained a lot of territory again in Baraboule. So it's now a situation that we're seeing recently. Many JNIM terrorists are escaping with bullet wounds. And the reason why they get to escape with this bullet wound is because we have seen that most of the time, they are on drugs before they move on majority of this offensive. So even if they get shot, if the bullet wound is not fatal, they get to live with it. And I think they've been taught on how to do some little bit of treatment. Some of them can locally extract bullet from the information we had, and they can apply some first aid treatment, which they've been taught by, some of the external forces that have actually been, helping them with their reconnaissance, with their logistics and all of that. So we also got a credible information that there is a particular logistic route in Baraboule that has actually been contested between the VDP and the JNIM component, and majority of the results of this skirmish that has actually been going on around this this route has come in favor of the VDP component because of their good reconnaissance information that has actually been fed to them. So if the route is being cut by the Burkinabes, it will be very, very difficult for the JNIM to get logistics into this place. But it's the terrorists. They can actually create another route in the bush, but so far so good. It was a good day for the Burkinabe out there. In war, sometimes you win or sometimes you lose, but in a situation where the troops come out 90% of time, they are coming out on top, is actually a very, very big victory. And the thing is, the JNIM lose a lot of soldiers, but they don't tell you this. And the reason why they don't tell you this is because they are not permitted to tell you. They are not allowed to tell you. If they report even to their superiors about their combat defeat, they get killed. So it's how bad it is for them on the front line. I wish them a very, very good luck on the line of contact. It's another big victory. And also from Nigeria, I have to say thank you to the Burkinabe Armed Forces, because this insecurity situation in Nigeria now is getting diabolic by the day, most especially in the northern Nigeria. So we do know that for every JNIM terrorist that is being killed, it's a help. It's a big help for a country like Nigeria, because they can actually pour in if they are not being contained in Burkina Faso. So I really, really want to say a very big thank you to the Burkinabe Fighting Force for putting a strong resistance against this element of darkness. I want to say thank you, much respect, and to all the patriots in the Android community, I want to appreciate you, and I want to say thank you so much for staying tuned with us. Thanks for your support. Your opinions in the comment section is always very insightful. The voices of men are the voices of God. I want to say thank you to everyone. Much respect. Big salute.